Beautiful. I will say, when I was on my way here, Phelim, I was thinking there must have been a day when you were suddenly made aware of your dad's voice, that you were, like, as a singer, obviously you knew him and you spoke to him a million times, but given just the impact he has had on people, was there a moment, or was it always just in the air that you knew that he was this big, deep voiced man who could deliver a song?
Yeah, I mean, he was very much, what you saw on stage was what he was like at home. Do you know what I mean? And,
Right.
And I always had a sense when I was growing up that, my parents had almost lived a separate life before, I even came along, because a lot of the Dubliners, international success, chart success even, happened in the early 60s,
Right.
It all happened quite quickly once the ball got rolling, and the sort of the characters that became the Dubliners came together. It all kind of seemed to find its own kind of, it grew out of that,
Right.
And they had achieved quite a lot for a gang of Irish lads, you know what I mean, who just got together to play a few tunes.
Right.
They'd appeared on Top of the Pops. They'd filled the Royal Albert Hall. They'd had.
And there was no
They'd
career
had
plan.
adventures. There was no career plan.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think they worked very much on the basis of they whatever they did that they didn't like doing, they didn't repeat it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they discovered that they didn't really want to tour in America because it's just too far away.
Right.
You know what I mean? But in a way, they got stuck into the same tours every year, which I think became a bit monotonous after a while. But by the time I came along, I mean, they were pretty huge, like, But also I think the cracks were starting to appear.
Okay.
In that my dad used to say, like, it was like a party that went on for 25 years, but ultimately, like any party, it kind of came to an end. And I remember when I was young, I'd go to see them in places like the Stadium and the Olympia, and it was just it was something that I grew up with, and as I've said before, that was our normal,
Right. And that feeling, though, that your dad and Luke Kelly were like the Jagger and Richards of Irish music for a lot of people. There was that sense of rebelliousness. There was great songs that they loved to sing along to, and I mean, was that something that again, I don't know if it would ever kind of would catch you by surprise, that there's your dad, and you love your dad and you love your mom, and yet there might be a public moment where somebody just regards him as it might as well be Mick Jagger they're talking to. They're stunned. As a kid, was that always a joy? Was it slightly surreal that they there's another life, as you say, from my
I think what became apparent to me, and could be quite difficult at times, is that a lot of people felt a certain ownership of them, so that wherever you went with Ronnie Drew, you never sort of had him to yourself, you know what I mean? There would always be people who would come over and and would expect a certain kind of repartee from him, which more often than not he was more than happy to provide, because he lived his life pretty much from a certain point in the public eye, and he kind of knew that was part of the territory.
Wasn't part of the beauty was that he also could say to someone, "Just get your F off." Like, if he had those moments where he needed a bit of privacy, and what I loved about him was that he wasn't completely, playing, the commercial game. I mean, commercially, you'd hug everybody and do the selfies and all that. He just wouldn't have been a selfie kind of guy. He loved his life and he had a great life, but what I loved about him was that he was, true to the moment. That if he felt he needed a bit of privacy, he wasn't averse to somebody to maybe back away.
Yeah. I remember one time we were in London, and this was they were playing in Trafalgar Square. It was the first. I think it was organised by Ken Livingstone, and it was the first organised Paddy's Day festival, and it was being held in Trafalgar Square, and the Dubs were playing, and they asked Dad to join them because he had left them at that stage to join them for the concert, you know, to kind of give it a bit more welly, I suppose, I don't know. But I'll never forget, we went over to this hotel afterwards because, you know, Dad fancied a cigar and a cup of coffee, you know, and he wasn't drinking at the time, and we were all sitting around, and there was about 6 or 7 of us, and we're all sitting around, and he was busy telling a story, you know, kind of his way of relaxing as well, you know. And this woman came over. She'd been drinking all day, and, you know, this would probably be about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She'd probably been drinking since about 12. She came over with a tray of champagne and a load of glasses, and she just stood over him, you know, while he was telling the story, and this really pissed him off, you know. So she went, and he just turned around and he says, "Hang on a second, missus, I'm telling a story. Just wait a minute." So she was left standing there for about 20 minutes with this fucking tray of champagne. And in one way you could sort of say, oh, that's really rude, you know.
But no.
And I know at least one of the company was really